This is the CreaseCast.
I have not eaten since like noon.
Oh my god. My
Well,
guy,
well
you gotta,
that's actually really late for me because I think I've said before, like, I always eat as soon as I get to work, which is like 6:30 or whatever, 6 o'clock in the morning. And then
So
I
you
do
eat-
not eat until
okay.
I get home, which is like, in this instance, 6 o'clock. So I'm very hungry.
Jeez. I can't.
I don't know why.
I can't do that.
I got a bag of zesty Doritos, which I never eat. So that's how desperate I am.
Wow. Oh my god, are you okay? Like, yeah, you're
Honestly,
suffering.
like-
Is that like so? Are you saying I need to like have an intervention if I ever see you like eating sun chips or something? Is that
Yeah,
is
like,
that
those.
what I'm?
You know those tweets where it's like, what do you tweet out when you need to let people know that you're being taken hostage? That would be mine. It's like a tweet of me with a zesty bag of Doritos. Or the tweet is, I'm really glad I've been eating these zesty cheese Doritos for the last 2 weeks.
That's
But-
perfect because it's unusual enough that you wouldn't tweet it normally, but it's also the right amount of rare that it wouldn't be a regular sarcastic joke you make or something.
Exactly.
That's the hard part, right?
It's
Yeah.
it's obscure enough where you'd be like, what? You kind of like
Yeah,
cock your head a bit and be like,
you'd stop and
alright.
think about it,
Mhm.
and then I would know, and at least I would know. I would be
Like
like, he's in trouble,
Yeah.
and I'm just taking off. I'm just booking it down the street.
Yeah. Well, anyways, folks, welcome to episode 117 of the CreaseCast. Lachlan Irvin's last CreaseCast as a Canadian.
I'm leaving the show, guys.
He's leaving
I'm
the show. He's leaving
forever.
the state.
Goodbye.
He's fleeing the state as a fugitive, illegally here.
I will
picking up his jerseys
be back
and
on
getting out.
Friday. I will be back on the show on Friday. But yes, I will
you'll
be gone for
fortunately-
two,
You'll fortunately be graced on Wednesday's episode with my attempt at hosting an episode. I'm going to
I'm very
reach out
proud.
to the people I know in Hollywood to get a
Hollywood.
good guest for everyone. So my
2 hours of
atrocious
Lee Sweat.
hosting ability. Yeah, 2 hours of Lee Sweat. Asking him about his accounting gig, carrying the one, etc., general ledger, all that.
Actually,
Balance
that would be kind of interesting, honestly. To be totally
It would be
fair.
like paint dry.
The idea of
It would be
bringing
so
in like
boring.
okay, honestly, the idea of bringing in having NHLers on as guests, specifically ones that have gone on to have a second career doing something else, that actually
completely
would
different,
be interesting. Yeah, completely different. That actually would be kind of interesting. I would be interested to hear from Lee Sweat talking about how, he went through the rigors of the NHL and now he's an accountant and how that transition happened. That would be cool. I'd be totally interested in that.
Could you imagine running an accounting firm and Lee Sweat applies for a job and you're like, wasn't I just watching you score a goal for the Canucks in the end of their season? And he's like, yeah, but I really, accounting's been my passion. And then he fucks up in his first week, so you have to give Lee Sweat shit for screwing up something. How awkward and weird that would be.
I think you're overestimating the amount of people who know who Lee Sweat is, and I love that's not a shot at Lee Sweat. Yes, we're just so crazy about hockey that we know those things. Most people don't know. Remember, literally, I don't know if you heard some of this stuff, but people you saw the Stephen A. Smith bit about Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl.
Yeah. I don't know anything about hockey except the puck is black. That's it.
Yes. First of all, that's great. That whole segment is great, and I saw so many people being hockey's oh, this is why hockey's a joke sort of thing. Look how he's just making fun of it and not knowing anything. And I'm like, okay, settle down. The fact that he mentioned Connor McDavid and LeBron James in the same breath is huge for the sport. Awesome. Yes, that is very cool and big and important in America. And I was listening to, I think it was Puck Soup. Somebody mentioned, one of the hosts on the show mentioned that their buddy who doesn't watch hockey but watches and works in the sports industry was that's the first time I've ever heard Leon Draisaitl mentioned, right? I didn't know who Leon Draisaitl was until that clip. And it's I don't think most people are as nuts as we are about hockey and know who, say, Lee Sweat or Victor Oreskovich is. But
Sure.
and then you get to the fact that most people don't even know who the guy who just won the MVP last year was. Like we're just built different, and and that's not always in a good way, but
not always the best, but we're
yeah,
very passionate people about what we consume in our daily lives. But anyways, folks, we have it's kind of a light episode because obviously, not much has really happened in the Canucks sphere, but we do have playoffs to talk about because obviously quite a few events have transpired in the last 3 days, starting with Knights Wild Game 7 tonight. And I started recording early because you had asked me what I thought was going to happen. Specifically, are they going to blow this? And by are they going to blow this, we are obviously talking about Minnesota Wild because they've been a contender for years. Yes. One of the best teams that have ever done it. No, obviously I'm talking about Vegas. They're the all-in of all-in teams. They got out for Alex Pietrangelo. They got rid of Nate Schmidt so they could keep Marc-Andre Fleury and Robin Lehner as their goaltending tandem. They have the number one defenseman. They have number two defenseman in Pietrangelo because they have Shea Theodore on the other side. They have Mark Stone. They have Pacioretty still. Like, they're about as loaded as you can get for a team that is supposed to be contending for the playoffs. But lo and behold, the team that got pretty much embarrassed by the Canucks in the playoff bubble, the play-in round, where they just looked like they had absolutely nothing to offer them, they are pushing them to a Game 7 tonight. And I don't have the game on. I don't know what the present score is. It is 6:17 p.m. on a Friday night.
I have it in front of me, but
okay. Lachlan knows, so he has spoilers. But
nothing
I was
so
going
far.
to say, as a proponent of Team Chaos, I am all for Minnesota winning Game 7 by like a 1-0 score.
Course.
Because
of course you are. Of course.
I think the second round is way more interesting if it's Colorado versus Minnesota than it is Vegas versus Colorado. Personally,
really,
because I think if Vegas gets through the next round, they're going to kind of sort through their issues, and it'll be like the reverse of what's happening right now with them against Minnesota. Like right now, they're getting goalied pretty hard, the same way that they got goalied by Demko. If they get to the second round, though, I think they're going to goalie Colorado. And then that series, which everyone assumes is going to be like the most action-packed, awesome series, is actually going to be kind of boring. But if you get Minnesota, I think you're going to have questionable goaltending on both sides. Cam Talbot's looked amazing to get him to a Game 7 right now.
He has 2 shutouts in this series.
Which is unreal.
Marc-Andre Fleury, as great as Marc-Andre Fleury has been in this series, and the fact that they're in a Game 7 has nothing to do with the way that Fleury's played. He's been incredible.
Right. Yeah.
Cam Talbot has matched him very well. Like, he has done an incredible job at keeping the Wild in it. And in a lot of games where they just haven't been able to, it's clear that the Wild don't have the same level of talent that the Knights do, and yet they're hanging in, and a lot of that's due to Talbot. He's been playing very, very well.
Yeah, they're persevering. They're getting goals out of throughout their lineup. Whereas I think
Kaprizov only had his first goal in Game 5.
Yeah, just recently. He only has 2 points or something across 6 games, which is pretty unreal. That they're pushing a Game 7 when their leading scorer, I don't know if he's leading, but I think he's leading. But when their leading scorer only has 2 points, and yet they're still pushing Vegas, of all teams, to a Game 7, that says something to their depth. Even though on paper it might not stack up whatsoever against Vegas. But I think I saw a stat from Sat E.R. Shaw where William Karlsson has only generated a single shot on goal in 6 games, which, if you're Bill Foley, if you're the coaching staff, you're like, buddy, you're supposed to be one of our premier forwards in our top 6. We need you to be scoring and generating shots against Cam Talbot. And as we ride you,
this was Karlsson?
William Karlsson, yeah, Wild Bill, Karlsson, as they affectionately call him. So, yeah, as a proponent of Team Chaos, I would love Minnesota to win because, for interesting sakes, I think Minnesota, Colorado is probably a more interesting series. But man, I'm also interested in it purely out of like the train wreck, watching what Vegas would do to their team if they get goalied into series back to back in the first or in the playoffs. Like Demko goalies them one year, so what do? They shed one of their guys who has a no movement clause so that they can bring in a more expensive, more famous defender. So this year, if they get goalied, what do? Do they go for Eichel? Do they say, okay, buy Mark Stone, buy Pacioretty, buy like whoever prospects they have left to get Eichel?
I would not be surprised if that's what ends up happening. Because, like, literally, it's an impatient ownership, really wants a championship. And honestly, like, from a hockey standpoint, like, we don't get a lot of owners who are willing to kind of do that. Who would be like, think about it like in basketball, right? Like when that, like, they have ridiculous trades with like star players every single year, basically.
Yeah.
Every single year.
All in moves every year from some franchise that basically mortgages the future for the sake of we're all in.
One championship. They go for the one. They just want the one. They're not necessarily looking to build a dynasty.
There's no long-term thinking in basketball because they know their stars carry all the leverage. So if they won out the next year, there's nothing they can do about it. They
get nothing. They get nothing out of it. So you have to. That's how like things like super teams happen. Like there are the way that the salary cap is structured in the NBA is so different from the NHL, and it allows for more things like that, like players being able to opt out of a contract after a certain amount of years. Obviously in hockey, once it's locked in, it's locked in. You can't get rid of it without buying it out. There's guarantees and whatnot. But in hockey, the Knights are about as close to an all-in team as you can get. They have very clearly bought. They have not been afraid to part with players who are really popular in their lineup, like Nate Schmidt, to get to pick up somebody newer and shinier, like Alex Pietrangelo.
They're all about the shiny toy.
Yes, and honestly, it would be very fun if they lost this year.
Yeah,
and we're going to trade half the team to get Jack Eichel.
Yeah, we feel our problem is that we need more scoring up front, so therefore, we are going to trade whatever prospects we have, our first-round pick.
Cody Glass.
Cody Glass
they already traded Nick Suzuki for, Max Pacioretty.
For Max Pacioretty, Which literally is a pretty good even trade between the two. But obviously they haven't won a cup with Pacioretty, right? So they're like,
they have not made it to a cup final with Pacioretty.
The funny thing is too, is like most of Vegas's all-in moves were made with assets they had cooped during their expansion draft. So it was like, we're basically
smart.
We're just shedding all the stuff that wasn't really ours to begin with anyway. So it doesn't really matter. But now they're getting in the stage where they're like, okay, now these are all the pieces that we have and only we have. So we have to start spending now if we really want to go for it. And Bill Foley's pretty much said, in public, I'm 78 years old. I want a cup before I die. So if I have to shake the shit up, I'm going to shake shit up, which is cool because you have the Aquilinis who are very quiet, and there's been intimations in the past where they're like, our father's been on the older side. We really want to win him a cup while his health is still with us, which everyone on board. Okay, you want to win for your dad before he passes away. Hell yeah. I'm completely fine with that because at least it expresses a vision you have or a long-term or short-term goal that you have for your club that kind of gels with your family goals or whatever.
And then you fast forward to now where the word Stanley Cup does not even appear in a letter to fans.
Yeah, it's just we just want to get a playoffs. We want playoff revenue. So it's okay, then it's not as sentimental as we want to win for our dad. It's just we want to win money. We want to make money for our family. We want to
make the playoffs. Yeah.
We want to make money for our dad.
That's people will say that you're reading. I know some people will look at that and I think Wagner did a breakdown of the whole letter and everything. Some people will look at that and be like, oh, you're just reading into things. That playoffs obviously implies Stanley Cup. No, it doesn't. That's a purposeful omission.
It is.
Don't kid yourself. It is very purposeful when a team does not say the word, or something along the lines of, our goal is to win the Stanley Cup. That is a very purposeful thing. I actually was watching like a video earlier today about like the Seattle Mariners, the year that they went to like they won like that record-setting amount of games, and like they talking about like how the team fell apart afterwards. Yeah. And one of the quotes from like their president at the time, like the president who was like responsible, like he for their representing the ownership group, he was like, our team isn't in the business to win a World Series. We're in a business of trying to field a competitive team that maybe wins the World Series as long as it is makes sense from a business standpoint, kind of thing, right? Very clearly, points to him, being candid, but like that's a very clear money is more important than championships to us. We don't care.
Sometimes the candidness works though. Like that's kind of like what I was getting at with the whole Bill Foley Aquilini comparable, because like if you're upfront with your audience, like your fan base, like, hey, I'm trying to win before I die, everyone's like, yeah, I get it.
Go for it.
Getting old sucks. But if you're like intimating
terrible.
like, oh, there's reasons like we want to do it for family, but we want to make playoffs, and even though our GM just said in public that they're not going to be competitive with elite teams for 2 years, he's now saying,
and
we want to make playoffs immediately.
And we'll see what happens. Anything can happen when you get there. Yes, you do realize that anything could also mean just swept out of round one, right? Like that's anything. Anything can mean a lot of different things.
That's what I tweeted out, I think, when it was like when Toronto had lost to. Or sorry, not Toronto. When Edmonton got swept by the Jets, I tweeted out something to the effect of, Jim Benning is somewhere watching this game and thinking, oh, the Jets sweeping Edmonton is exactly why the anything can happen in playoffs mentality is completely valid. Instead of looking at the Oilers getting swept by Winnipeg as the anything can happen mentality. Because instead of looking at like the worst case scenario, which is you have two of the best fucking players on the planet losing to a hodgepodge of players and getting goalied, like at some point, like, I mean, obviously the Vancouver market is smart enough to realize like, okay, these two ideologies that you're putting out in back-to-back press conferences, they don't gel. Yeah. They don't make sense.
Look, and honestly though, like GM or like, well, I shouldn't even say GM, any person that has already set their mind on a vision will find a way to justify it, right? If Colorado goes on to win the Cup, they're a team that built properly, but in the eyes of a different person, they could go, well, remember they finished dead last and had that weird awkward year. See how anything can happen from that? Like you can find a way to justify your call and how you're building a hockey team. In just about any team you want. Carolina, same thing. They nearly left the damn state. Like, you can go through all of the potential championship teams and be like, well, the wait and see method works. But even though there are lots of reasons why those teams also have shown, hey, slow and steady, building properly, putting the right building blocks in place can make you a contender for years to come. Yeah. And what is nice about the way that kind of the playoffs are shaping out right now, I know a lot of people are pointing at Toronto as kind of like if they win, that's good for the Canucks, because they'll actually might look at the Canucks and see how longevity and strong building work, kind of thing. Right. Like, and I know some people hate that because Toronto, right? But there are a lot of teams. There's a lot more teams than just Toronto there. Like, that could do the same thing. Colorado, Carolina, Tampa Bay, Boston is another good example. Like, there are pretty much every team in here that's still here, except for, say, Montreal and Minnesota, two teams that probably won't win their series.
And Vegas, who are pretty much
Vegas, which is a bit of a different sort of, a completely different sort of semi-related scenario. Yeah, they're their own separate entity and kind of styled, right? There are a lot of teams still left that that are going to have a shot at the Cup this year. One of them will likely win, and all of them have done a very good job of building properly and actually taking the time to look through and going top to bottom. How can we make changes? How can we how can we instill a winning culture even while sometimes we might not always win? That's kind of the mentality that they have to take. And as regards to, say, Minnesota right now, as in terms of what they might get out of this, like, they're on the right track. Like, the Wild are still a ways to go. I mean, those Ryan Suter and Zach Parise contracts, I don't think run out for another 7 years,
which is just insane because they moved to those teams like how long ago now?
2000 summer of 2012, directly before the lockout.
Unbelievable.
And I think they just passed the halfway point. It is bonkers.
Ryan Suter is still like legitimately a very good defenseman. Like he is still very he's and Parise would be fine if it
and Parise would be fine if it wasn't for the injury issues. Like he'd still probably be a little bit more serviceable. And I think he scored in Game 5. I think he scored
after being scratched.
Right, exactly.
Which is like the worst thing you want to do to a $7 million or however many dollars player he is.
Hey, at least they got the first 7 out of him, unlike certain other people making $6 million. Sorry, Louis. The Wild, they're a little stuck with those sorts of situations and whatnot. And again, that's part of like GM's long gone. And the Wild are on the right track though. They're starting to put the pieces together for the future, and that's really good. So even if they don't win today, like they're starting to at least build a semi-interesting team, which is very nice.
Which
and
is the hardest
real nice
part.
Change of pace.
From
years ago, where they were just like the most boring team on the planet.
They started off in a very good direction by signing a very, very intelligent and proven director of amateur scouting, one that was responsible for a draft class that debuted 3 players this season in Jonah Gadjevich, Cole Lind. I don't think DiPietro played, but another 2. So that's 4 out of 7 or 8 in a single draft class. That's a pretty good ratio for a director of amateur scouting. I can't believe anyone would let that guy go, but I mean, autonomy, hey, that's pretty crazy.
How about that?
But anyway, as we move along with the whole teams with good process versus teams with questionable process, the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Montreal Canadiens, they had a bit of an interesting Game 5. A bit of an Edmonton Oilers-like situation where someone got out to an early lead and blew it, went to overtime, and sure enough, the short king himself, Gold Caulfield, whatever his name is, Cauliflower.
Yes, I think he got it.
I think that's correct. He picked off a pass from Alex Galchenyuk, former Montreal Canadian Alex Galchenyuk, which for some reason I forgot about, even though that's like very recent. But I completely forgot he was a Canadian for like a while.
Yeah,
a bit weird.
It's been a while. Well, because it's been a long time. Because he's played since then for, let's see, Pittsburgh, Arizona, Minnesota, Toronto, Ottawa.
There's a team in between there too. I'm pretty sure.
There was one I believe there's one in between Pittsburgh.
I feel like he played for a Florida team, didn't he? Did he play for Florida? Anyways, we won't waste precious time. But Galchenyuk was earning articles for the rehabilitation of Alex Galchenyuk, how Sheldon Keefe saved his game and made him an NHL player again, and then he blindly threw a pass through center ice while in the defensive zone, right onto the tape of Cole Caulfield's stick. Habs generate a 2-on-0. Quickly score on Carey Price and push the series to Game 6, which happens tomorrow, Saturday, which will be for you guys listening tonight. What do you think? What do you think is going to happen in this game for Game 6? I'm Team Chaos, so I am obviously get it to Game 7 because it'd just be hysterical. But what about you?
I think Game 7 is going to happen specifically because remember this. So the Canadians are going to get fans in the stands for this game, they'll be the first Canadian team to have any fans in the stands. It's not going to be a lot of them. It's going to be very expensive to get in. I don't know. Have you seen the ticket prices on the resale? I believe they're only giving them to like season ticket holders are the only people eligible to where they were like you're giving them to them. And those people are trying to resell them. I think the cheapest at one point today was like $960 or something for the cheapest seat.
Well, it's been a tough year, so like I get it. If you get your hands on some playoff tickets as a Habs season ticket holder, and you have the chance to resell them for like $1,000 a piece, I mean, a lot of people incurred some pretty big bills during the pandemic. Like, sell them if you can. Why not?
Yes, yeah. I am sure the people who can afford full Montreal Canadiens season tickets every year regularly are really hurting financially. Oh no, poor
them. There's the upper bowl. Those are kind of cheap-ish.
Oh,
it's like $3,000 for a year, right?
It's got to be however much it is for like say the Canucks on a normal year. I imagine it's double for Montreal or Toronto, right? Probably. It's got to be like at least like double or triple the price. And remember, and Canucks season tickets aren't exactly cheap either. I imagine they're on the pricier side. I do feel bad for Galchenyuk that he's kind of getting dunked on here. Admittedly, as someone who took part in that, it's not so much about him in this case as it is about all the Leafs people who are like, look how they rebuilt his entire career. There was that one thing where somebody wrote like some
right.
Yeah, and even like some fans who were like, there was some really weird one where someone was like, they took in a kid from the cold in the pouring rain and turned into Alex Galchenyuk. And then so of course as soon as he messes up in an important game, everybody's like, oh, look how they rebuilt him like that. Yeah, and I feel bad for him in that regard. That being said, I think the fact that they'll have fans in the building, even if it will be a smaller amount, I think that's going to be a different kind of atmosphere than any of those players have played in all season. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to put the Habs at a good advantage to kind of maybe like feed off the crowd. I mean, you've seen some of the videos from other games in the States where they're just clearly the crowd is just getting so into it.
It did not help one of the teams we're going to talk about.
It did not help. It helped them in the first few games, and then it stopped right at the very end.
Yeah.
And you know I think this will end up going to a Game 7. I do still think it's pretty clear. I mean, it's pretty clear from the Game 5 that this is Toronto. Like when Toronto wants to turn it on, they can. I mean, they came back from 3-0 down. They probably would have won that game had it not been for the mistake in OT. I think that they're still very much still in control of their own destiny here. I mean, this series was boring up until yesterday. I think they'll be fine. Provided that they don't let Carey Price get to them in the later stages here. This is very much a chance where you can get goalied a little bit like those last few games because you start gripping the stick a little tighter when you have the 3-1 lead and it starts to slip away, you start to panic. That's kind of going to be their big thing here, and this is something the Leafs have to really grow out of from their last few playoff series is don't let it get to you. You have to be able to have the mental fortitude to just look at every game as a new situation and look at it as a one-game playoff every single night. You can't think about the series leads. You can't think about everything else. You just got to think about one shift at a time.
I do appreciate the Toronto media, though, freaking out that people are like making fun of the team for basically blowing it and like taking personal offense. Like, why aren't people supporting our team? It's like an hour ago they were posting articles like, Mitch Marner does not have control of the karaoke machine, ordering a new one. The drama. So it's
that what?
The karaoke machine story is like true. I don't think I have the actual specifics right, but the cringe embarrassing factor of it is true. Like that was a story that came out either this year or last year. I can't remember, but it's just like there were a lot. I mean, Jeff, I don't know if you want to call him Toronto media, but he's obviously like a huge simp for them. So like he kind of counts.
Media.
Yeah, and he's like a huge oh, why don't people ever support this team? Why are Canucks fans so angry at...
Oh, that was Myrtle. That was Myrtle who did that.
I'm blocked by Robo Myrtle. That's too bad.
Are you? That's funny. Myrtle
Yes.
was like, I don't remember this much hatred for the Leafs in the 20 years ago when I was living there, and I was like, and then I think Pet Bugs was like, yeah, that's because they were garbage. Nobody cared.
They were
about
shit.
The Leafs
Nobody cared about
when
them.
They were bad.
Yeah,
of course, no one cared. Yeah, what did you want? Like,
it's funny because at that time too, like there was still a shit zillion articles, and it was the Toronto Sports Network, so it was like it never stopped, even while they were bad. It was just like, what are the Leafs gonna do? And it was like, here's the Vancouver Canucks, one of the most innovative and like legitimately one of the best ice hockey teams in the league for 2 to 3 years straight. No articles from TSN. Nobody cared. It was all just, what are the Leafs up to right now that's going to turn their season around? And so it's very funny now that they're finally kind of putting it together so that they might get out of the first round, and their fan base is like freaking out that they're not getting the attention. And it's like, you've always had the attention. You've just been giving it to yourselves.
You don't need to. We can't give you everyone can't give you more attention than you've already. When you're already, it's already up to an 11 at all times. You can't go to.
Out. There's nothing left.
You're capped out. You already had it there. It hasn't changed. You can't go higher than infinity right at this point, right?
The hockey world is Jim Benning. We ran out of time ages ago.
I've honestly tuned that stuff out. I actually which is really funny because I actually was thinking Leaf fans have been kind of quiet this time around, specifically because I think they know that nobody really thinks they're nobody cares about this because everyone knows they're going to win the series anyway. So it's like nobody's freaking out. Nobody's paying that much attention about it, even including amongst themselves. I always just think back to last year. There was this really ridiculous. I think the most asinine take I've ever seen was this one person on Twitter. This one person who was like, I don't get why, when the Canucks had went on their run to the second round, was like, I don't get why people are all being so excited about the Canucks, but then they give the Leafs trash for losing. It's like, it's so backwards and classic hockey culture. And I was there was a very kind of I guess it was supposed to be a very woke take sort of thing. And I was and I just remember thinking, wait, sorry, are you mad that people are cheering for an underdog? And you think that's a hockey thing? You think that's a hockey trope?
Have you heard of sports?
Have you heard of? Yeah, is this your first? Madam. Are you new to sports entirely? Good lord. Yeah, the team that was supposed to do well didn't, and the team that wasn't supposed to do well did. That's called being interested in underdog stories and defying the odds. Get over yourself.
Speaking of defying
I think Toronto's
going
to win though. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, from before we move on to the next topic, I hope Toronto wins purely out of I don't like people saying that the process that Toronto has taken with building a contender is the wrong idea. When
thank you,
all things considered, I think they have a very smart process, building through the draft, building up a tremendous prospect pipeline where they have Pierre Engvalls and whatever coming into their fourth line and providing 20 points a season or whatever, and they just churn them out, trade them away, whatever it is. That's
couldn't agree more.
I love their process, and the fact
they've done an incredible job.
Yeah, and the fact that the team that could beat them is one that is all free agency and trades. What can we make out of our team together? Out of other? Yeah, exactly. And so I hope the Leafs get through the first round at the very least, so it kind of validates that the process they're going through is valid. Because in my opinion, it is. I don't believe in the quick turnaround. I don't believe in the turn it around in a hurry approach. I think it's dumb.
No.
I think the problem with the turn it around in a hurry approach is that you have to commit to it from the get-go. You can't try and turn it around in a hurry.
You can't
and then a year or 2 years into it and it not work, and then suddenly you switch it around because you've already committed. Mm-hmm. And that's where the Canucks are right now. To any gamers out there, I was thinking about this on my run earlier today, and yes, I do go on runs amazingly. My face is a little beet red if you're watching our YouTube stream. I was thinking of this in terms of League of Legends. If you do not understand what League of Legends is, skip to the appropriate timestamp that I'm sure Lachlan is going to painstakingly scrub through and find. But it's basically the turn it around in a hurry approach is in League of Legends, you build items based on where you are at in the game, and you take bets basically on how your teammates are going to do as the game progresses. So if you are a big tank and you're really far ahead, you might build damage because you're like, you know what? I'm going to carry the game because I have a feeling that my buddy Lachlan over here is going to, hold his own and be an awesome player too. But if Lachlan ends up screwing up and I actually have to cancel building being a damage dealer and be a tank, it's too late because all the items I've bought as a damage dealer are now going to be sold for way less. And if I build a tank late in the game, I am suddenly not as effective as I was if I just committed to what I was originally doing. So the Canucks tried to turn it around in a hurry. They paid high in free agency. They got Verbata. They got, a bunch of random plugs. It didn't work. It sucked. 2015-16 was an awful team. 2016-17 was an awful team. And they realized, oh no, we can't keep trying to turn it around in a hurry, but we've shed all the assets we need that would help us change from turning it around into a hurry into a long-term outlook. So that's why I'm like, Leafs, please, for the love of God, do not blow this. Do this. Get through the first round. I mean, I'll appreciate the memes if they don't. If they blow it, I'll appreciate the memes, but I will hate it from like a hockey man process standpoint.
Yes, I'm fully agree with you. Especially they've done they've worked wonders in the ability of understanding that your minor hockey team has to be an extension of your pro team. They've done a really good job of understanding that there's no cap on coaches, which we always talk about. They're always hiring people and promoting people to and people with different mindsets and different lines of thinking. Even if they don't always agree with one another, they know that it creates a better thinking group in how they approach the sport. As much as we like to dunk on the Leafs, the fact that the fact that they have the chance to do so well is because they've done a really good job and chosen the right way to go about. Mm-hmm. And that for the rest of the sport's sake, that people figure that out and that they do well enough that people start learning from them and actually trying to do that themselves. Here in Vancouver being an especially good example of someone that really could use the Leafs going on a run to show you why this process works. And again, it could be them, it could be Colorado, it could be Carolina. Yeah. There are a lot of teams left that could give you that same lesson, and you hope those teams do well for the sake of the Canucks and for other teams that might learn from them.
Yeah, as much as we hate to admit it. But we'll get into some playoff updates because, as we said in the beginning of our show, a couple series finished. Number one being Tampa Bay ousting Florida. They tried to ride the Spencer Knight train. Well, I guess Night Train, that's a pretty good pun, but that wasn't intentional. But that's pretty good.
Midnight train going
to Tampa. Oh, yeah. But anyway,
racing south.
They tried Spencer Knight, and it worked really, really well in that one game. But unfortunately,
it worked fine in Game 6 too.
Yeah. The problem is Tampa Bay.
He was good.
It's the defending champs, and it's like a ragtag group. Speaking of process, for all that Dale Talon did to try and destroy this team, they've somehow survived with some good process bets. Carter Verhaeghe for one, Anthony Duclair on a cheap contract. Spencer Knight throwing him in net in a do or die game twice in a row from Joel Q. Those are big bets. That's good process. Try the non-hockey man thing, which is great. Unfortunately, as we said, it's Tampa. They got Steven Stamkos. They got Victor Hedman. These guys know how to win now, which is it's like in Dragon Ball Z when Goku spent 20 years in the hyperbaric chamber, and then he came out and learned a new move, and
I totally
it was oh shit, Goku knows a new move now, and he's gonna destroy everybody with it. So they've won a cup and now they're like, oh, we know what to do now. This is a lot easier, guys, because they look
gone Super
really
Saiyan.
dominant.
That's what it's called, right? I know that. I know things.
Well, I mean, technically, he had already learned how to go Super Saiyan, but in this instance, he had gone to hyperbaric chamber for multiple years. It was one day was 1 year in the hyperbaric chamber, but you could only use it for so long.
And then that's where he meets Sailor Moon, right? That's when he met Sailor Moon.
That's not correct.
He met Sailor Moon, and then they go battle their Pokemon. I know. I totally. As you can see, I'm an expert. I totally correct.
Know. Anyway,
this went off the rails very quickly.
The game 6 was like, it was pretty entertaining, even though it was like a complete blowout. Like, it was still like, Florida's trying.
Vasilevsky was
the fans were nuts.
The Panthers were really good in the underlying numbers, which was great to see. Yeah. Like, the Lightning won because they were more stacked. They didn't necessarily win because they were the better team. The Panthers actually outplayed them, arguably, for most of that series. The fact is, the Lightning had Andrei Vasilevsky, who's a very, very good goaltender. Yes. And then probably the Vezina winner. Just the fact that, probably going to win the Vezina again. And they just have a stacked unit. Like, there's no shame in Florida's efforts here. Like, the goaltending outside of Spencer Knight kind of let them down in the early parts, and frankly, they might have won that series had they maybe gone to Knight a little bit quicker. But I understand why they didn't. It's going to be interesting to see how they go, because they're actually set up quite nicely to keep this going next year. Like, they'll get Ekblad back, who's going to be 100%. At that point, Knight will probably be your starting guy coming into next year, so you'll get a full year with him.
On the bench, or Bob is
$10 million Bob is on the bench. Chris Drieger might be gone. He might go to Seattle, so you never know. And also, interestingly, there have been rumors that Joel Quenneville might up and leave.
I read that today. That was a bit.
I've seen that a few times. Like, I've seen that rumor a few times, which will be very interesting to see. I don't know what his contract situation is in Florida. I imagine it's a lot longer than 2 years. So
I would have expected it to be like a 5-year deal, right? Because that seems kind of like the standard for like the big name guy. So it's like it would be weird for him to be bounced that quickly.
Yeah, so we'll see if he. I would be shocked to see him get out of that contract and go to the Kraken. But that is something to keep an eye on, apparently. But either way, Florida's set up very well. Tampa is going to get a very good matchup in the Hurricanes. I think that series is going to be really good. And I guess did we want to jump into that, to the Canes and Predators right now, or
let's do that, because obviously we had to touch on Panthers. Yeah, goodbye Panthers. R.I.P.
Yes,
you tried.
R.I.P.
It didn't work, but you tried.
You tried so hard.
They tried so hard, but in the end, it didn't even matter. Nashville Predators reached out to Dave Portnoy, and it kind of mattered because the guy wasted $25,000 like a complete idiot, betting on Nashville to win to spite the losers.
I don't even know who that is. I frankly don't even know who that is. So,
the fact that you don't know is a savior to your brains and your brain cell. Right, brain cells, not brain cell singular. Brain cells multiple. I was not trying to be a rude jerk there. But yeah, Carolina wins. Your boys, your Hurricane fellows.
Yes.
That was I was watching the game winning goal like at 11:30 at night because I decided I don't care for the game. Like I said in our last episode, series wasn't interesting to me. It wasn't entertaining. I thought Carolina was getting embarrassed, like by even getting like losing games to Nashville at this point in their series. So I was like, okay, I'll catch up, see who won, whatever. And it was like, oh, Sebastian Aho wins. I look at the video, and it's like this awkward point shot, and it's such a fast shot that I was like, wait, how did they score here? I could not see the shot until someone put in a super slow-mo version of the shot in the comments, and it was like this gorgeous tip from Aho that somehow puts it just over his left shoulder, and it's an unbelievable tip to win the game. And it was so funny. It was so funny seeing the Nashville crowd just dead silent.
Oh yeah,
because they're a pretty rowdy group. They have their chants. Like, I appreciate them for having chants and stuff. Like,
they're a very
I think
fun building.
Yeah, the more fun soccer based kind of chanting we can get into hockey games. Like, we'll talk about that in our next series.
I've
but
seen
the more
some
that
people
is,
with
like,
takes here that hate that. Like, apparently people hate that. At like some Canucks fans actually hate that, and I'm like,
it depends.
I'm kind of like,
because some of them are really mean spirited and like kind of like shitty. Like, cause some of them are just like they talk shit about like Nedeljkovic or Aho, who's like a 19-year-old child, and they're like, Aho, you're shit, and you're like, well, come on, guys, like, they're just trying their hardest. You don't have to be so mean. Yeah. Like, have fun, chance. You know?
Yeah. What I'll say is it's like, interestingly, like, I've seen some people who generally I agree with be like, no, I don't want people like standing up and making noise the entire time. It ruins the experience and it's annoying for everybody. I'm like, and I'm kind of like, and I'm on one, like, and I'm kind of like, why would you go, like, if you don't like that, then just watch it home. Like, if you have a problem with noise, why are you going to, like, with the exception of like some people who actually have like sensitivity issues or something like that. That's
or if you have
different.
A family, right? Like, if you're Joe Schmo who brings like his 3 kids, and you have a bunch of drunken idiots chanting, you know, fuck you, Luongo, or whatever, then you're like, this isn't
sucks.
fun.
Yeah, that sucks.
I don't want my kids learning the word, like, you suck.
Right. If you're just getting upset because they're making noise or something, like, even regardless, or standing up or whatever, then it's like, why? Like, why are you here, man? Like, that's... Like, I don't know, just watch on television if you don't like the noise of like people like getting up and having a good time sort of thing.
What do you think about the actual next series though, Carolina Tampa, which is obviously the big thing to come out of that series for me is just like the fact that Tampa Carolina is going to be the next series. To me, that is potentially more interesting than Carolina Nashville, but seeing how Carolina struggled so hard with Nashville, I'm like, are they just going to get completely dumpstered?
I honestly think, well, remember, I mean, Tampa struggled with Florida for a lot of that series too, so I think you're going to see... I think you're going to see 2 teams who maybe are a little more woken up than they were before. Like, they're going to be coming in just ready for a full proper battle, because this is a good... You know what this is? This is a really good, like, matchup of, like, one of the old, long time just teams that have been Cup contenders year after year after year versus kind of a new age group in the Hurricanes. It's like, it could be a passing of the torch kind of thing if Carolina goes and wins here. I think that, I think Carolina's best years are still ahead of them, which is incredible for them.
Yeah, they're a young group for the most part.
They're very young. Their cap situation is really good, so they can keep adding to kind of the group that they already have. I think this is going to be a much harder series for Tampa than people think. I think a lot of people are already kind of counting them out, like counting out the Canes a little bit, because again, even though they're the higher seed, Tampa is the older, stronger team in terms of just what they have available to them. But I think Carolina is going to... I think Carolina's quicker. I think they're younger. I think they're going to be a little bit more desperate, play a little bit more desperate hockey because they just need to pass some of the better teams. I think they're going to surprise people. I think Carolina's going to win this one.
I would agree with you if they hadn't just struggled with Nashville. Because they struggled with Nashville, part of me is like, I think they're going to get just completely steamrolled.
I honestly try as my best not to like take what I see from games against
the
one
previous
team
series
to the next. Right. Sometimes that's totally, like, I get that that's totally fair. Like, it's totally fair to look at those things, but you also see a lot of teams where, say, they'll sweep in the first series and then get obliterated in the next, right?
Yeah.
Where they'll cook one team. I think it really is a matter of, you can match up very differently against different teams. Nashville could just have been a team that Carolina matched up a little tougher against. I think Tampa is another team that they match up a little tough with as well. But I think their speed, and I think the fact that they're a little bit more durable, at least right now, seems like they could maybe play into their advantage here. I think Tampa's going to have to keep up the pace with them, and they might get a little bit more tired from all the hockey that they've played as the series goes on. I think it'll be close, though. I think it'll be like Canes in 6 or 7.
Yeah, fair enough. Now, onto a series that neither of us care for, but was made a bit more interesting because the goaltender decided to go home early, and that was Tristan
he was
Jarry.
he was done. He was like, I've done enough this year.
Because I think I messaged you or you messaged me, and you're like LMAO Jari, and so I watched like the clip of the first goal, and I was like, oh, that's not bad. And then by the time I got to the fifth goal, I was like, oh my
Oh
god,
no,
oh no! And then I saw the shot totals, and I was like, oh no, he has like a reservation somewhere at 6 o'clock. He has to be at because
yeah,
some of those goals are so like that one that was 5-hole from like 50 feet
yeah.
away. It was like, buddy. Like you
Both
have
of the last
Crosby on your
two,
team. Are you kidding? How are you doing this
both
to your boy?
both of the last two goals, I watched the highlight. I watched like the behind the net cam view on both of those, and just was like, oh my god! I was just like, oh my god, because you can see him completely line up incorrectly, and as he's like up above the crease, like trying to like track the puck.
Yeah,
And the puck will beat him because he literally had like left all the room on like his left side. Like I think it was the Ryan Pulock shot that took the lead.
yeah.
It got tipped. To be fair to him, it got deflected, but still, he was so clearly lined up to like the shooter and not the puck that he left all this room in his short side. And then the goal that beat him 5-hole, another case where he was kind of like off his angle, where he was off the angle, and then he left. I think he realized his error too late, and he opened up, and that's why the puck went through the 5-hole. Like, he's a young kid. I think he'll get better, but also just, oh my god. Like, again, 80s goalie vibes from Tristan Jarry. He kind of blew that one for him, like, completely. I don't know if they could trust him going into next year is the problem.
Also look at
who lost that for him.
Look at who's running the team too. Like if anybody is going to make a big splash, and I've talked about this on the show before about Brian Burke and his book where he flat out states that his MO as a GM on every single team is to evaluate for the first year, and at the end of that year decide what he's going to do, and then make the big splash at the draft or on July 1st. So if you're Brian Burke and you saw the team in front of you, which were legitimately one of the best in the Eastern Conference, get blown out because of awful goaltending, I bet you anything he's looking at Marc-Andre Fleury right now and the goaltending situation in Vegas and going, we need to try and get this guy back. Because if Vegas gets eliminated, they're going to want to make a big move. I want to make a big move. Let's try and make it happen here.
I have a similar suggestion, but from I think one that might make more sense, like a name like this is not based on, again, this isn't based on any rumors. This is what I'm thinking. Again, and also keep in mind Ron Hextall is also GM, right? Like technically the GM is Hextall, and he's a little bit more of a take our time kind of guy. But
which
if
hasn't
I'm
really
put a name
worked
out there for who might be a good fit
teams.
For Pittsburgh and might be a good trade partner. Particularly because he is from there. John Gibson. What about John Gibson? Because playing on a team like the Ducks that is not going anywhere fast. They're very clearly taking their time. He's only on he'll be going into year 3 of an 8-year deal. 6.4 million cap, which is kind of good for what he brings. Which is like that's a pretty good deal for how good a goalie he is.
If you're,
I could see a real scenario where Pittsburgh and Anaheim pull off a big one where Gibson ends up in as a Penguin.
I like this a lot because Brian Burke also has connections in Anaheim still with that ownership group.
Murray.
He spoke lovingly about his time in Anaheim. Said he respected the owners, all that stuff. So he's got established relationships with them. Evgeny Malkin also obviously had a bit of a tough year with the injuries. Came back, looked produced pretty good for Pittsburgh, but like obviously like there was like just a bit something missing there, probably because he was playing through something. But at his $9.5 million cap hit, that could be a very interesting fit from both teams' perspective, where you flip the number one goalie for like pretty much like a number 2, number 3 center on like a good team. But that's obviously not Anaheim. but then the contract's done by next year. You can flip him at the deadline again, and then all of a sudden retain half of Malkin's salary, and he's suddenly like a playoff trade chip for next year's deadline. Like that's a pretty good option for both teams because they both win.
Maybe. I just wonder, like, Malkin has been such an important part of the Penguins. Like, don't you think, like, wouldn't they want him to retire a Penguin? Like, wouldn't that?
Yeah.
And I feel like for in Anaheim's case, like, they would probably want to go for somebody they'd be more inclined to go for like the young whoever the young prospect is for the Penguins.
Obviously,
right?
It remains to be said that it would be like Malkin plus picks galore plus prospects galore, whatever they have, in exchange for John Gibson and some B tier like Danton Heinen or whatever.
Probably Jari goes to make money work.
Exactly. Goes to make money work. They make the money work. But it's still a huge package from Pittsburgh there.
Because the Ducks, I believe, have a few decent goalie prospects right now. You would know better than I would, but I believe they have one or two. I believe,
I don't know the name, but he's some Finnish kid. I'm pretty sure. I know he's from one of the,
Yeah, that would be in that region. I'm glad we're talking. This is actually a really good trade talk. I think like this could be very much something that works out for them. They have Anthony Stolars as well. They've got him. That's
sorry,
who their other goaltender is.
He's Swedish.
They also have, and then Swedish would be Ollie Eriksson.
That's what I was thinking about.
Okay. He's 21. Yeah, they have a couple. They have a few goaltenders. Couple goalies I don't know, but okay.
Yeah.
20. That would be interesting to see. So yeah, I think that would be a trade that would make a lot of sense. It really falls directly in line with the idea of, okay, we have Crosby and Malkin who are only going to get a few more prime great years out of to get another cup. We're win-win now mode as long as we got them. Let's go. Let's get a bona fide starting goaltender and put them back in it. Of course, and again, this has nothing to do with the current Penguins management. It is just shocking for the Penguins, like how much better they could be right now had they just not chosen Matt Murray over Marc-Andre Fleury. They would be in a lot better shape right now. Like, it's incredible just how badly that turned out for them. I don't think any of us saw that coming. Like, I think, like, again, I was very much on the idea that, hey, I don't think Murray is the right call. I think you should be hanging on to Fleury instead. But I didn't think it was going to be, like, this obvious. Like, I didn't think it was going to be, 4 years down the road? Or that fast. 4 years down the road, Murray's going to be an Ottawa Senator, and Fleury will be a Vezina Trophy candidate again, like, for, like, the second straight year. Like, that, like, I don't think any of us saw that coming. But, yeah, I think that would be an interesting little... I think that's a name to keep an eye on. I think Gibson and the Penguins would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I agree. So in series after those, the Islanders versus the Bruins,
which apparently starts tomorrow.
We don't care about the fact that the Islanders won because we're just like, who cares? But Islanders Bruins, I have a feeling Islanders are probably going to beat the Bruins.
Really? Interesting.
I do. I had my original bracket, I believe, picked Penguins all the way to the Cup final and winning their final one with Crosby, which, well, that's ruined.
Oh, no.
So I have a feeling, though, because the Islanders look really good. They look good. I have a feeling they're probably going to take it to the Bruins. I think it's going to be a good series, though. I think it's going to be a very high-scoring series, actually.
I think for the same reason. So I think for the same reason that why the Penguins didn't do so well, have struggled so much with the Islanders, I think the Bruins are better at, which is that I think they're more capable of playing the Islanders style of hockey while scoring a little bit more frequently because they have David Pastrnak, they have Marchand, they have Bergeron. They have guys who can both play the finesse game and the strong, hard defensive game. They're very good about that. I think that the Bruins are much more well-rounded than the Penguins were, and I think they're more well-rounded than the Islanders currently are. I mean, Matt Barzal has not done well in the playoffs. If they're going to win, they need Barzal to come out and play a little bit better. I don't think he ended up with a goal in that series, unless I'm mistaken. I don't believe he had a single goal in
wouldn't know.
that whole first round. I think this is going to be a bit of a goalie battle. I mean, you're going to have Ilya Sorokin, who's been
Sorokin versus Rask.
Yeah, another Mitch Korn gem in terms of goalie development. And then you've got Tuukka Rask, who's Tuukka Rask. He's great. He gets too much flack for the incredible goaltending he gives the Bruins every single night. I think this is going to be. I think this will be a better series than Pittsburgh New York was. Just because I think the matchup is going to call for more offense just automatically, like you kind of mentioned. Like it's going to call for stronger attack. So I think this is the Bruins though. I think the Bruins are going to take it. I think they're going to get it done in 6, and that's not just because I don't want New York in there. I think that's just because the Bruins are the better, more well-rounded group. I have the Bruins going, I believe, to the Final Four. Yeah, I believe.
All right.
Which would
we're split, which makes us a bit spicy.
Yeah, which would set them up to play either Toronto if the Leafs end up getting through, which would be interesting, another Leafs Bruins, or the Hurricanes, who they've swept before. Or actually, I think they've knocked out of the playoffs 2 years in a row. The Bruins, or the Avalanche, which would also be a good series. Like those are my top 4 who I'm thinking, and that series starts tomorrow, so that'll be interesting. Now you want to get in the line. Okay, we got one more. Yeah. We got or do we? Yeah.
No, we don't. I think we got all the series out of the way.
Did we get them all? Because Toronto
only the 2 of them had actually finished. We just had the games that were kind of very funny with the Leafs losing to the Habs.
Okay. Then let me ask you this really quickly before we get into like the little NHL stuff here.
Sure.
What out of all of the teams that? Oh my God, I'm sorry. Just right as I was about to ask you a question, I saw a replay of Ryan Reeves doing something very stupid. And pushing, I believe it's Ryan Suter directly headfirst into the post from behind, hit from behind.
Of course he did.
And he is down. It's so the question I was going to ask before I was distracted here is what team out of the groups that have been that have already either been moved on or are eliminated, which one has surprised you the most from a good standpoint, and which one has surprised you the most from a bad standpoint? We'll say ignoring the Oilers. We already spent a lot of time on the Oilers, who disappointed me the least. But outside of
the teams that didn't move on.
So teams that did move on or didn't, either or. Which one have surprised you both in from a good standpoint or a bad one?
From a good standpoint, man.
And that could be an eliminated team, for example, whether Minnesota wins or not tonight. I would put them in that category.
Would be Florida. The good standpoint would be Florida, because the fact that they did, like you say, they still took 2 games off of like the reigning Cup champions, like with a very hodgepodge kind of young team. That's impressive enough on its own. Surprised me in a bad way would be Washington. They looked absolutely checked out. Just could not give a shit in that series against Boston. I guess I'm not surprised really, because like I feel like the last few years they've just been cup hangover. Like who cares? Like that seems like to be the way they play. Frankly, they just do not look like they care anymore.
Fair enough.
But yeah, that's my picks. I don't know if you have different ones.
So for team that surprised me the most in a good way, I'm trying to think. I think I just said as like an example, Minnesota. Like I think Minnesota would be in there. They've been fun. They've pushed Vegas to a Game 7. Whether or not they win tonight, I would put them in the good category regardless. Just the fact that they've done this well is pretty darn incredible, and they've looked good doing it. Like you have like Fiala chipping in. You have Joel Eriksson Ek has been a big part of their team. Cam Talbot has again been really good. I would say Minnesota has surprised me the most in a good way. In a bad way, I think you got to go with. I feel honestly, it's probably got to be like Montreal. Like I thought Montreal was going to have a bit more fight in them. Caulfield gave them a nice little help there, but the fact that they blew a 3-0 lead, like they didn't deserve to win that game. Like they very clearly didn't deserve to win. I think they've made some very questionable coaching decisions that have really hampered them. There have been a couple games where they just look completely uninterested in the same way that kind of Washington did.
Sure.
I would have to put them, I think, in that. I think I'd say have surprised me in a bad way. But that could change. That could very much change by the next time I do an episode. So we'll see. Yeah.
Well, the one piece of NHL news that we wanted to touch on before we ended for tonight's episode, Elliot Friedman from 31 Thoughts intimated that his inside sources believe that the NHL salary cap is going to be stuck at $81.5 million, possibly for the next 5 years. So as we close out this episode on a good note, just keep that in mind as the Canucks try to navigate a very, very tight salary cap while they negotiate the deals of Elias Pettersson, Quinn Hughes, build a third line, figure out their defense. It's a lot to deal with. And when I heard that, oh my God, I was just like, oh no, they're so screwed.
Am I wrong for being pissed at the NHL a little bit? Like, you just got
their fault.
It kind of, okay.
It's not their fault.
It kind of is, though. Because, look, how much money did they just get from the damn ESPN and TNT deals? Like, how much money?
Not a lot, though.
Like,
that's the thing.
I'm sure they got, well, they didn't get a lot compared to the NFL or the NBA or the MLB, but that they made a record-setting amount of money for what the NHL has made on broadcast rights in the past. Like, by a good margin, they made a lot more money than their last deal with NBC. Like, and the fact that you are now going to go into these broadcast deals a little bit saying, okay, we're not going to raise the cap at all. We're going to show zero progression for the majority of these contracts that we just gave out to broadcast deals. Like, how on earth is that a good idea? Like, now, I partially think that, again, I think we've talked about this before because we've talked about the flat cap situation. And I get that the pandemic has made things difficult and they've lost a lot more money. But I would be stunned from a growing the sport standpoint if this wasn't just kind of we are tempering everybody's expectations and then we're going to raise the cap we are going to raise the cap. But like, it won't be by like huge amounts. I would be stunned if every year it wasn't like, okay, we're going to add, I don't know, $200,000 to the cap, even if that means nothing in terms of an actual contract standpoint. I think you at the very least have to be like, okay, look, we're showing growth of some kind. You cannot just have it stick at that same exact number for 5 years, for half a decade. Yeah. Like that's terrible. Like that'd be terrible for trying to get more people in the sport and watching the money grow sort of thing. At the very least, I think it's going to go up like a tick every single year. It just won't be by like a huge, massive amount of money. It'll be a little bit. You can't go into that. You can't go 5 years with just, what is it, 82 million? Like something like that. It's something along those lines. It's got to come up a little bit every year.
You've now piqued my interest in like in 2 years or something. They're like they do this big ground announcement. They're like, we've raised the salary cap from $81.5 million to $81.75 million. It's just like, oh,
that's something though. That is something. That's a quarter of a contract right there.
Yeah, it's such a pathetic amount. That's not even a full contract. That's like really funny.
Sure, like, but I just don't see how you could do that. How you could not do that, right? It'll add up over time to like add one league minimum deal for everybody, but that's still something. It's not about the money. It's not about the number itself as much as it is we're growing our business. Please don't yell at us for staying the same for 5 years. They also get the Seattle expansion money. Get out of here. Get out of here with your, we need the cap to stay flat for half a decade.
Our cap's not moving up, but please support our league. And in those same terms, if you like supporting the NHL, why don't you support us? We've got a Patreon. We've got $5 tiers. We got $1 tiers. We're going to start working on our off the post content when Lachlan settles into his new digs in the United States of America.
I swear to God, I'm coming back, guys. Don't worry. It makes it sound like I'm leaving and I'm going forever. I swear I'm coming back.
Yes, but we have all this content we're planning to do. Obviously, like Lachlan's migration, we'll put a little stop to that for a little bit. But please rate, like, and subscribe to all your favorite podcast platforms. Help us out with some reviews. Help us out with the 5 stars. Tell your friends. Tell your grandmas. Grandmas love our stuff. Mr. Lachlan, where can the fine folks find you? Tell them.
You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Lach and the Crease. You can also find me on Twitch at Lach and the Crease. Why am I bringing that up? I have no idea. You can also find my writing at lachandthecrease.com, where I post where I post articles from time to time. I forgot I'm not doing the weekly series anymore because the season's over. But yeah, I will have some content. I'll have lots of summer content coming out. Some of it will be regular hockey coverage. Some of it will be a little bit more unorthodox and interesting, just trying some new things. As well as the show will be the same way. We'll be doing a lot more interesting, weird stuff over the summer while we try and keep you guys entertained over the course of the next however many months. Yes, Cody, where can they find you?
The fine folks can find me at Cody Severson on Twitter, comicsharvest.com. I am supposed to be working on my year-end review, but honestly, I keep getting sidetracked with GIFs and memes and jokes instead of doing content, because I am a grown adult, and this is what I do in my spare time. Straight. But I mean, the last year-end review I did, or the season review I did for the 2019-20 season, came out a week before this season started, 2020-21. So if I get it out within the next 2 to 3 months, I feel like I'm actually on time and early. So by that metric, I'm doing pretty good. But
the Comets 2021 review coming to you summer 2023.
That would actually be so funny. Just like release it 5 years from now. Just like, oh yeah, by the way, this happened.
We're like Avatar. We're doing the sequels just way too late. We're doing like 5 sequels all in like a decade after the first one. Yeah.
Yeah. I am the G.R.R. Martin of AHL content writers.
There we go.
Take my sweet time to churn out stuff you were already expecting. But until then, folks, we hope you enjoyed this episode. Playoffs are still going on. We should hopefully have a very questionable episode starring me and God knows what guest, what poor soul that I'm going to subject my first interviewing skills with. Thanks for tuning into this episode, guys, and we'll catch you guys later. Bye!
Bye!